This is Heidi Wall-Giesbrecht of Encouragement Along the Journey. I'm excited to be here and excited for those who will join us this morning. Welcome. So today our topic is the comment section reimagined. Depth over noise. We are waiting for Frank to join. We will invite him in as soon as he gets here. In the meantime, Kevin and I are here with you. And today's conversation will just be about people who find themselves kind of in the margins of other people's writing, talking about what we notice, what we come back to, what stands out, and just how we engage. So I'm just really delighted, Kevin, that you are here. And I'm going to give you a chance just to introduce yourself, tell us a bit about yourself, and maybe what first brought you to Substack.
All right, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be with you and live, and it's also a pleasure to have all of the guests joining us, and of course
Mhm.
those who will rewatch this in the future. I am Reverend Kevin Taylor. Kevin is fine. I am a pastor, a husband, a father, a leader. I've written a book called A Charge to Keep that was published last October by Advantage Books, and I am a leadership strategist, a
Mhm.
consultant, and am available to help people to carry the weight of their leadership. In terms of why and how I joined Substack, I have been writing LinkedIn newsletters, but I
Sure.
felt that there was a prophetic part of my
Mhm.
ministry that just didn't fit the professional part of what I thought LinkedIn was, and so I learned of Substack and said this is pretty easy to be able to learn and understand. And so, given that this is America's 250th
Mhm.
birthday, I wanted to be able to write about the Black experience and the way in which
Mm.
we could approach that particular milestone. And so I started in
Mhm.
January with a biweekly edition, and I actually didn't really get fully engaged to the level that caught your attention and others until June. And so for the first
Wow.
several months, like I only had a handful of subscribers, but as
Yeah.
I began getting to know people and commenting, my numbers have grown. And because of the types of responses that I saw, I actually launched a second newsletter that is called Lean on Me, that really
Mm.
addresses some of the weight and grief that people are carrying. So here I am with the unpaid ledger, it's America's
Yeah.
250th. But as I've commented, as I've gotten to know people, it is clear that there are people that are carrying a lot of hurt, a lot of pain.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be able to write to that and to be able to share. So this conversation is timely for me and is also exciting because, like, oh man, like, just it was not that long ago that I met you.
That's true. Yeah. And, when I joined Substack just slightly before you, kind of end of November of last year. At the urging of my business coach who said, "Hey, you are starting to do more writing. You need to be writing on Substack," and kept pushing me to do this. And
Mhm.
I was like, okay, fine. I don't really know what it is, but I'm always up for a challenge. So let's sign
Yes.
up and figure it out. And yeah, kind of, I feel like I've accidentally stumbled into so many things here and I've been learning as I go. I write encouragement along the journey, which is, it kind of is exactly what it is described as. I love being an encourager. I've discovered over time that if I lean into who I am, that that's the part that comes really naturally to me. And so I write about whatever happens to be in my head. So my
Mhm.
description is an art gallery of the exhibits in my brain. And I also launched a second newsletter, which is very sporadic. It's kind of whenever I feel like writing something there, I do. So my main one is about life and my work as a counselor. My second one is called Reflections on the Sacred and the Ordinary. And it's a place to step into questions of faith a little more intentionally in what I try to do as a very open space that is welcoming, again, not providing answers, but just a place to talk about questions. So you first came to my attention, I think it was April, who had said something about you as a commenter. And I was like,
Mhm.
wow. And I commented. And then from there, I think you and I just kind of took off and had
Mhm.
conversations. And that actually has been one of the reasons that I invited both you and Frank to be here because both you and Frank, I find engage really thoughtfully with writing and offer comments that just really welcome people to engage deeply. So you talked about how the first 6 months or so you were just kind of writing into the void. What changed that for you?
So thank you, and I'm very happy that you have started the second one. I feel like Substack is addictive, and so like it wouldn't surprise me if there were 3 or 4 more. Like could there be some collaboration out there in
I
terms
love
of
collaboration.
this this work? For me, it was all right. Well, I'm posting daily on LinkedIn. I'm working these angles. I have this Substack that is I know is valuable, but is not necessarily being seen. And so, like, what would it look like? Somebody said, like Kevin, you got to treat Substack the way you treat LinkedIn, and you got to be
Mm,
there and be present. And so, all right, I said, well, why not? Why not give it a shot? And so you mentioned April, like she is my shero of all of
nice.
Substack. I love her dearly, but I just began commenting and commenting deeply and would do what I would do at LinkedIn, and that is to, if I comment on something, then I'm looking at the comments that other people are sharing, and if something is resonant to me, to be able to mention that, and then one thing leads to another, and then like because I want to get to know who the people are, then I'm going to their page, and then I'm looking
Mm,
at what articles they've produced and commenting on those and reposting those and subscribing and so, like for me, I was specifically targeting, and targeting isn't the right word, but I was noticing that there would be people who, would have a ton of likes or maybe
mm,
no likes at all, and there were no comments. And one of the
mm.
hardest things about Substack is being able to be vulnerable enough to be able to
Yeah.
share your thoughts and then for it to go and for it to feel like, well, did anybody hear me? I mean, I felt like I was being deep, but did anybody notice? What was
Yeah.
being said. And so for me, you not having any likes or you not having any comments doesn't mean that what you have said hasn't
Mm,
garnered or has moved someone. And so it behooves me to be able to help you to know that I
yeah.
hear you, I see you, I believe in you. And like that alone has been, I think, both freeing for those individuals and helpful to me. As a
Mm,
pastor, I am like you, an encourager. And so, like in a lot of ways, I was trying to avoid being the pastor of LinkedIn, right? But that was what my engagement looked like. On Substack, it feels like I can be
mm,
my authentic self and look, I know it's not for everybody, but to be able to come in and to encourage you to be able to say thank you for your clarity or for your
yeah.
epiphany or for your courage or for your vulnerability. I think
Yeah.
it means to people that somebody is there.
Yeah. As I hear you talking, I mean, the word calling comes to mind. Does part of this feel like a calling?
So it does, and it's so much different from what I thought that it was going to be, right? Like it was, but I do believe that we are called to be able to encourage the saints. I do believe that we have to equip the saints for service. I do believe that we've got to make sure that people are are supported, and that's why I actually launched the second one, Lean on Me, that then talks about the weight that we are carrying and how we can deal with
Mm,
it. And so I specifically positioned it so that it was not centering me, that it was centering God. And it was
okay.
like I'm in my seventh issue and I end with a prayer. But for me, it was like, okay, I've got to be able to help the persons who are reading this know that not only are they carrying this weight, but that there's somebody that we can go to, that there's
Mm,
someone that we can lean on who will be able to help us. And so like I'm not trying to be your savior. I want to introduce you to the
mm,
person who is going to be able to carry this better than even I can. And so that was personally that was me being vulnerable enough to be able to say, is this
mm.
going to make it? Is this going to be what people have wanted? But the response has been great. I'm thankful for it.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's the lovely thing about Substack is there is such a variety of writing. And I mean, I know when I first joined, I didn't realize that you were supposed to comment and that's how you
Mm,
connected with people. What happened was I would read this writing and it was so amazing. Like, I think my first weekend, I all I did was read, 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 and I
mhm,
kept saying, "Oh my goodness, there are so many good writers here." And of course, I'd read something and I'd be like, "Oh, like, I just need to comment on this. And so I
Mhm,
started commenting, and then I started having like people who didn't know me follow me and subscribe. And I was like, what's going on here? And then, reading some of the material later of this is how you engage on Substack. I'm like,
mm,
oh, okay. So
mm,
again, like my little accidental discoveries. But I definitely found that with so much of the wonderful writing, I engaged with what connected. And so,
mhm,
I think I love that you have the two separate Substacks that are, they each serve a purpose and
mhm,
they're open to the person who needs to read them,
mhm.
which is really, really beautiful.
And same for you. I think
Yeah.
I think what you're doing and creating opportunity. You even went so far as to say that the second Substack is sporadic, right? So there's
Mhm.
not so you've notified us that there is not the same
Yeah.
rhythm of every day or every week, but that it comes as it comes up within your heart. That I think that's also real, right? I think that's
Yeah.
also okay, and I think Substack creates an opportunity where, as often as I think about it, I can share, but I don't have to
Yeah.
feel the same level of obligation that I'm disappointing someone if it didn't arrive
Mhm.
in their inbox at the time that I had projected, or to meet the most used time of Substack. That it's more about the messaging and the encouragement than it is about trying to
Mhm.
beat an algorithm.
Mhm. Well, I wonder as I hear you say that, I'm wondering if that's part of like it touched on something for me, and I wonder if it's part of our connection as well. Because for me, Substack has never been about an algorithm or
Mhm,
about a pressure. It's been more like a release valve. Like
mhm,
it honestly, when I describe it, I say I feel compelled to write. Like I can't not write. And thoughts will come constantly and I'm like I have to write this down whether someone reads or not. I mean, I love it when people read, obviously.
mhm,
But the writing is not about writing for people to read it. It's writing because I feel like I have to. And so part of it has been there's a rhythm to it, but it's not a rigid rhythm. It's
mhm,
a rhythm that is honoring of where I'm at and how I want to show up. And so it's felt very much about community building,
mhm.
like building a community of people that also love to think deeply and engage deeply. And yeah,
No, I agree, and I listen. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm not chasing the algorithm there either.
yeah,
And is where I'm, trying to drive, business, but I don't feel the
hmm,
need to sell on LinkedIn. I mean, on Substack, I don't feel the
yeah,
need to be able to, and so like maybe I need to move to a paid model, maybe I need to do something, but like I don't feel the same level of stress as I'm
yeah,
posting on Substack. And so I agree that it almost feels like LinkedIn could be the boardroom, but that Substack can
mm,
be the coffee house, right, or the bakery where where
yeah,
people just gather and spend their time, and they don't feel rushed, and they don't they just hey, how are you, and
yeah,
we look, we might end up subscribing, we may not, we
yeah,
might like what you have to say, we may not,
yeah,
and we move on, but there's no there's no strategic, I need to meet this many people by this time in order for me to be able to achieve success. And so
mhm,
I'm thankful that the growth has been organic, that the
yeah.
conversations have been real, that the support has been genuine. And that's just it's a different environment than what other platforms offer.
I love your description of Substack as the coffee house, and I'm sitting here smiling because one of my dreams for years, like somebody asked me, like, if you could design the ideal place for you, like the ideal, I don't know, career, a meaningful existence, what would it be? And my thing was I would love to create a coffee house that is filled with comfortable couches where people can come, enjoy their beverage, bring their crafts, bring their thoughts, stay for as long as they want.
Mhm.
And my main job wouldn't be serving coffee, it would be having conversations with people. And as I heard you say that, I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm living my dream. So, yeah,
But that
awesome.
was listen, that and that's great, right?
Yeah,
I think Substack also creates opportunities for conversations like these, but
Yeah.
also, conversations for people who are introverted and don't necessarily love being in the limelight, or to be able to share, that they can also be safe and comfortable to keep it at arm's length, or to engage in a conversation like this one. And though we're not
Yeah.
able to physically reach out and touch one another, to be able to see your face and put the name with the Substack only enriches the relationship. So, you know,
Yeah.
uh, I think it's what is needed in the world with all that is happening. A safe space to be able to
Mm.
share, not worried
Yeah.
about being overheard, or being judged for the way that you feel, but just to be able to
Yeah.
say that I'm still here, that I
Yeah.
am I am where I am, and I'm okay with it. And it's okay to be not okay. And it is that I just happened to see a bird fly by and it reminded me of this, and no one to judge. Well, you really should have talked about this. And if you had talked about that
Yeah.
aspect, there's no judgment. And so it feels much more home-like than work.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I hope that as we're building this community on Substack, that we can take a little bit of it out to the wider world, because I agree. Like, it feels like such a warm and welcoming and encouraging, deep, real human space. And there seems to be a real yearning for that kind of a connection. And I've always found that online connections can be very real. People sometimes say, oh, well, an online connection isn't really real. And it's like, no, actually, I've made some very real
Mhm,
connections with people who, I was sharing with you just before we got on that I sing in a women's barbershop chorus.
mhm,
And that started in COVID when I had this deep longing for connection with people and for doing music in a really good way. Well, up here in Canada, we were not allowed to meet together to sing
mm,
because that was one of the initial high incidence places where COVID got
mhm,
passed. And we have our youngest members are in their teens and our oldest members are in their 80s and 90s. And so there was some significant concern about health of some of our elderly members. And so the first year was spent just online. We did every single rehearsal on Zoom, which I was like, how do you do a music rehearsal on Zoom? Well, I will tell you, you sing little solos in front of the whole group and then they give you some feedback. So it was pretty intense, but the first time we got together in person, I honestly couldn't remember which of the women I had met in the flesh and which women I had just met online, because we had learned to know each other so well. Mm. And so I think, as we have this space here where there's so much encouragement and kindness and gentleness and curiosity and a willingness to disagree, but to do so respectfully. There's such a need of that in our world. And so I hope that each one of us can kind of carry that into our daily lives with us when we're not on Substack as well.
mm. No, I absolutely agree. And just to know that that connection exists, and that there's
Mm,
someone on the other end, no matter how far away they might be, that is
yeah.
receiving what you are saying and is able to, it resonates, or it unlocks a memory, or it shares. I think that's great. And I think it is one of the holdovers of COVID. It is one of the ideas that people need the connection and they need the community. And I'm not saying that the other platforms don't provide it, but in my mind, there is no need either to sell or to present myself in a certain
Mm,
way, or to share only the best parts of my life to
yeah.
make you jealous of what I have and what I don't. Like, none of that exists, because it is what it is. And I am who I am, and you
Yeah.
don't have to like it. You don't even have to subscribe to it. You can click past my name or my
Yeah.
story or my situation, and that's okay. And so I do feel that Substack is a very special place, and I think commenting on people's posts and recognizing that they are poured in is not only how it keeps it special, but I do think that it is what creates the community. Now, look, there's
Mhm.
a whole Substack culture that talks about how to sell on Substack and how to become
Mm.
a billionaire, and do this and do those things. And the challenge that I have with those is that it feels inauthentic. it
Yeah.
feels inauthentic to do, these 17 steps in order to become rich because I then would miss out on a conversation like this one,
Yeah.
miss out on the people who have joined us today and have said, you know what, this is a worthy conversation. And I would be looking at numbers only and not lives, not people,
Yeah.
not someone who has taken the time to pour their heart into the written word and now just as wanting to be affirmed that what they're saying makes
Yeah.
sense.
Mhm. Kevin, just one thought when you were saying, feel free to scroll past my name. I've been seeing the comments here. I don't think anyone scrolls past your name.
Nope.
I'm seeing lots of lovely affirmations of
Yeah.
just appreciation for your words and the way in which you connect with people. And I'm curious about that because I see you doing such a fantastic job of commenting so deeply and so thoughtfully and so generously in so many different spaces. And uh, I know I try to do that as well, but I really struggle to have enough time and energy sometimes to engage as much as I would like. And so I'm genuinely curious. How do you manage to yeah, how do you manage to do it so beautifully?
So, so thank you. And I honestly feel on most days like I'm failing. So, I'm a dad, I'm a pastor, I'm, a husband, but like Substack is addictive. And there are so many great stories and so many
Mm,
great things that are out there that I feel like it's important for me to be able to share. And so I understand too that I have to balance that and too much of anything can be
mm,
bad. So like
yeah,
in terms of what and how, the what is that everybody that I've subscribed to, obviously I get those in my feed. And what I want to do is I want to respond to each of those every day. And I also want
mm,
to be able to respond to all of the comments of the things that people have said. And that honestly keeps me busy for a lot of the day because I want to be able to, treat every comment with the level of care that was shared.
mm,
And there's a lot of, and Kevin, thank you for seeing me, or thank you for putting it that way, or
mm,
thank you for giving me language that I didn't otherwise have. And so that's where the ministry part comes in because it,
yeah,
it feels like, you're sitting in my office at church and we're having a conversation back and forth. And so I want to honor the fact that you came, right. And that you showed up
yeah,
and to offer encouragement. Maybe you didn't, uh, come into the office, but I just wanted you to know that I haven't forgotten that you were in the back there, and I just want you to know that I
mm,
saw you. And so
yeah,
that's the like so honestly it is that. And so I'm working well into the night to be able to try to
mhm,
make sure that I can get through every day's subscriptions and
yeah,
every day's comments. And I may, I'm a little behind. I haven't been able to do that yet today. But I know that I will. So that's the what. The
mm,
how, I think, uh, so I have created in my own mind an acronym that need not go. I'm not trying to sell it anywhere. I'm just telling you it's called DAVAS, DAVAS. And so what I want to do with every one of my comments is that I want to deepen the connection. I want to AV add value, and I want to AS make sure that the author feels seen. So if my comment can deepen the connection, add value, and make the author feel seen, then I feel like I have done something with that comment. So that's Davos. It's not like, hello, Frank. It's not, I'm not trying to take Davos with like the acronym made sense to me, but that's what I want to be able to do. And so I want to deepen the connection with everybody that I meet, not just the people who have
mm,
me commented on, but I don't want to just comment for comment's sake. I want to be able to add some
yeah,
value. And then I want to make sure the author feels seen because again, you have spoken from a place of vulnerability.
yeah.
And I want to make sure that you are affirmed that your thought, your idea, your concept makes sense to someone.
Frank, welcome. I'm so glad it worked. Frank, why don't you give us a little introduction of who you are and what brought you to Substack, and then just jump right on in the conversation and we'll go from there.
All right. So my name is Franklin and I'm from Nigeria. Originally, I came on Substack to find my writing passion because I've always loved writing. and I tried writing on LinkedIn, but it was too professional, right? So a friend told me about Substack, and when I came on Substack, it was quite different from LinkedIn. Because on LinkedIn, everybody has to be professional and white collar, but here it's like you can be yourself and learn and grow, and there's like no pressure of trying to be
Mhm.
perfect, and I love that. And
Mhm.
writing on Substack, I realized I had a flaw in my writing, so and I struggled with consistency. So
Mm.
being on Substack actually helped me build a system around that, and it helps me show up daily, and I don't have to stress about what to write. And with that, I get to read other people's content and be present in them, because I
Mhm.
realize that it's one thing to write. It's also another thing to be present in other people's writing, right? Because when you make people feel seen, they'll
Mhm.
see you as well. And there's no fun in growing alone. You need to grow with others and grow, move along with others. So that's what I've been trying to do on Substack.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've just been taking it one step at a time.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just struck by the similarities between what you both have said. And I mean, Frank, you were one of the first people who really showed up consistently in the comments in my pieces. And so, Kevin, when you started showing up in the
Mm.
comments in my pieces, that's why I asked each of you, like, "Hey, do you guys know each other?" And you were both like, "No, we haven't come across each other." But what I found was both of you were just so you showed up so beautifully in people's comments, and yeah, it was what I really came to appreciate about both of you, which is why I envisioned this and said, "Let's do this." So, yeah.
I'm certainly glad that you did. Nice to meet you,
Yeah.
Frank.
Thank you so much for this.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I'm curious, when you think about meaningful engagement, would you say that it's a skill or a personality trait or intentional practice or some combination? Like what is it for you, or what do you see it to be for others?
Okay. So, like I said, I started out on LinkedIn, and on LinkedIn, you get to make a post, and everyone
Mm,
says great insights, lovely insights, and it sounds quite generic, right? And everybody does it. But here on Substack, I try to be different and to be present, right? Because
mhm,
at the end of the day, it's all about being present.
mhm,
Generic results just feels abstract. I mean, I wouldn't want to give 1 hour of my day writing and crafting a piece only to get someone say great insights. It doesn't really make sense. I'm someone who loves constructive criticism. So I'd
mhm,
rather you criticize my piece constructively than tell me great insights. I don't know what to do with great insights, because I work with data. So data is all about getting insights and refining insights to get better decisions. So if I can't make better decisions, I don't really like it. So I have to like show up for others how I want them to show up for me. Yeah, that's how I handle my engagements and
okay,
reaching out to people.
yeah. What about for you,
Uh,
Kev?
so I mean, again, so much of what he shared is consistent with what we talked about earlier in the segment. But if I come back to this acronym that I created on my own called DAPUS, I
Yeah.
actually think that it's teachable, right? And so I
Mhm,
mean, I it's how I approach the work, but I think that it's something that anybody can do. How will you deepen the connection? How
mhm,
will you be sure that you're adding value? You're not just reflecting back what was said, but like, what is the value that you're able to add? And that value comes from your own personal experience, or
mhm,
letting the author know that when they did it, it triggered this memory, or
mhm,
it allowed you to be able to see a part of yourself that you had been hiding, or whatever it is. And then, again, the AS is the author to feel seen. I just do think that like Frank, that there are people not so much that are looking for the feedback in the sense that, this was great or this was terrible, but to be able to say that, like, I see the words behind what you were saying, right? It is evident to me that you are hurting, or that you're in pain, or that this reflection, not just because you told me that it was hard to write, but like this took you to a place that was really sensitive. And so I want you to be that comfortable sharing again. So let me
Yeah.
affirm for you that that was not a waste of your time. Let me show you that it was worth it for you to be able to go to that place. And I understand that you might not be able to get to that place every time, but
Mhm.
I want for you to know that it was worth it. And so, not unlike a sermon, to what Frank is saying, after, oh, Pastor, that was a great message. Well, what was great about it? Like, what about it? Or, the pastor show preached today. Well, what did he preach about? I don't remember. I just know he preached. No, what what happened as a result of you hearing the message
Yeah.
that made you want, like, that is what every pastor lives for. That is what every person is, that touched me today. That was for me, I hadn't said anything to anybody, but when I heard that you were talking to me, well, that is what I think every
Yeah.
author wants, is
Yeah.
to be able to know that it wasn't, that their work was not in vain. And
Yeah.
so deepen the connection, add value, make sure the author feels seen. If you can do those things, I think that you can have meaningful engagement
Yeah.
on Substack. I'm not prepared to do a live about this thing, about Davos. Like, I'm not trying to sell it as a
All good.
system for you to be able to use to, it's going to promise you more likes and more growth. It is, though, an opportunity for you to be
Yeah.
able to deepen relationships with people.
Yeah. Well, and I always love these conversations because as both of you are talking, of course, my brain is firing, and the thought that just came to mind was, I mean, both of you are talking relational skills. You're talking about authentic connection, listening deeply, engaging in human ways rather than robotic, simple answers to things, but really like listening to what people's hearts are sharing and letting them know that like this is a safe place. And I think yeah, that listening is so valuable, right? Being able to and I think when you listen deeply, that's when you go, "Oh, this is the piece that connected with me," or this is the thought that came out of this for me. And yeah, it's interesting because I Frank, before you joined, I'd asked Kevin like, how do you do it so well and so consistently across so many different places that you're reading? And I find my challenge is my time is limited, and so I try to be on Substack and at least deal with my notifications. I try not to dismiss things unless I've had a quick look at them, and I engage where I can, and I often find myself wishing I could engage more. Um, I've also had to realize that, uh, we can only do what we can do, and so on the days you may have noticed when I'm on vacation, suddenly I'm very active on Substack and I'm commenting everywhere, and then there are days where I have 7 clients and I just don't have that same kind of energy. But I think as I was listening to both of you, the thought that, like, if each of us just shows up with what we have to offer. It doesn't have to look one way or another, and I that's what I heard you saying, Kevin, like, this is how I do it. I'm not selling it as this is the way everyone has to do it, but I'm giving some wisdom from my own experience of how I have managed to engage. Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
and I think you're right, and I think this is also a place because, to Frank's point, this is not a job, right? This is a place where we are voluntarily being part of each other's lives, and so there are just some days where, I'm just not going to be able to get to it. It doesn't mean that it wasn't valuable. It just means that I hadn't gotten to it yet. But I will, right? And I'll be in time. I will be able to share, and maybe it's not as long as something else. But I do want you to know that you matter, and so it's like anything else that you want the attention to be dedicated to the author, and as best you can do that with the time that you have available. I think that's okay because nobody's judging you, right? There is no,
Right.
this is no, there's not a clock related to this that like this is not your income stream. This is just an opportunity to get to know people that you wouldn't have otherwise known.
Hmm. Yeah. I find too, just thinking about like how we show up as you were talking about, like, this is our volunteer, essentially
Mhm.
this is our volunteer experience right here, and just wanting it to be a space where we show up authentically. And I think when it comes to, some days I can't show up in the way that I would like to, or maybe not that it's not in the way I would like to, but not with the amount of time that I would like to give
Mhm.
to it. That is the I don't pressure myself on writing, but I do find that I put a little bit of pressure on myself to show up in responses authentically. And so I've had to like have a little bit of grace with myself and say, okay, I would love to show up really deeply in every single piece that I'm reading. Uh, I can't necessarily do that, but I will try to show up in a few. And I again, I those are those moments where I'm like, well, I have to trust that people see my heart and see that my heart is about being here authentically and in an encouraging way, even when I can't show up in every place that I would like to. Are there things that both of you have kind of learned about yourself and how you show up? And are there places where you put pressure on yourself?
Frank, you want to take that one first?
All right. So I I I try to show up every day, but
Mhm.
life gets in the way sometimes, and you don't get to do that. So what I try to do is I try to start with the community, right? With the MH community I'm building, and I try to show up for everyone there. You need to grow one at a time. So it's all about the process for me and trying to build consistency,
Mhm.
because I've heard from most people that whatever you want to be in life, you just have to start and be consistent
Mhm.
at it. And over time it pays off and it compounds. So I've been trying to build that consistency habit as well. So but in engaging with people, sometimes it's tough because there are some works I get to read and I don't really get the full picture and all about that. But it's all about trying to be there for others. And like I said earlier, I just want to show up for people in a way whereby when they show up for me in something similar, I'll be happy and I'd show some improvements as well. So that's how it is for me.
Okay.
That certainly resonates, and I can, and I agree that it may not be everyone, but to the best of my ability. So,
Yeah.
two quick biblical parallels. Jesus was healing people all day, and the line of people to be healed was still long, and he stopped,
Mm.
and then he went to rest. And so, I
Mhm.
think that and I'm not comparing myself to Jesus, and that's just not in any way, but to be able to say that it's okay that there are still other substacks to be able to read. It is okay that there's still more work to do. You have put in a good day's work, and that day's work might be an hour, it might be 15 minutes, but that actually then means that the comments that you do have are that much more special
Mhm.
because you, of all the ones you could have selected, you selected that one. So that's the first one. I think the second is the parable of the sower, which those of you who were in church last week, that was the lectionary scripture. But the idea of sowing seeds, right? And so part of Substack is just consistency. And that
Mm.
consistency might be 15 minutes, it might be an hour, but like you're sowing seeds. And listen, some of the seeds are going to fall and they're going to grow and they're going to get eaten up and others are going to come out of the ground and they're going to be burned in the sun. And some of them are going to go on to rocks and then they're not going to be heard from again. And that's okay. The birds will eat them fine. But then the scripture also talks about the idea that when it falls on good soil, there'll be a bumper crop. And so, look, I didn't start this thinking that one day I would go live with you. I
Yeah.
didn't start this thinking that one day that there would be an opportunity to be able to share with so many more people. I was
Yeah.
just sowing seeds. I was
Yeah.
just allowing them to scatter. And yeah, we're
Mhm.
talking about authentic engagement. I still get the people who say, you aren't real, be for real. Like, okay, well, like, that's, you don't comment like a human. Well, I am. And so I'm commenting deeply, and maybe you speak
Yeah.
in only one sentence. I speak in more than that. And
Mm.
so, but I say that to say that, like, it's not going to be that everybody receives the seeds. However, when it falls on good soil, oh, bumper crop. I mean, I'm telling
Mhm.
you that there is opportunity to be able to grow and to be able to meet and to be able to exchange ideas. And that
Yeah,
is what you're looking for. You have to
Yeah.
just be okay that not all
Yeah.
of the seeds that you share are going to fall where you want them to, but you have to keep sowing.
Yeah. Something that I realized quite a number of years, and it was one of those, you have those moments where you get this insight and then it becomes like a driving force in your life. And this was one of those moments for me where I realized and it was in a session where a client came back that I hadn't seen for quite a number of years. And I actually thought that they left because they weren't getting anything out of therapy. And so that was kind of the story that I had carried with me for quite a while. And then they came back and said, "It was so helpful working with you." And I'm like, "Really?" Because my story was that it wasn't
Mhm.
helpful at all. And then the client shared, there was this thing that you said that was life-changing. And I'm like, "Oh my goodness, like, what did I say?" And they told me my words, and I remember thinking, "Well, that sounds like something I would say," but I had 0 recollection of saying it. And it was this moment where I realized, what we say and do, often the parts that have the most impact, we actually don't even recognize as being impactful. And so for me, that's been part of showing up on Substack as I try to show up in life is come in being me, bring what I know I bring it authentically and genuinely, and then trust that if somebody needs to hear it and if somebody needs to be encouraged by it, it will find them. And it may find them today, it may find them a year from now. I don't need to control the outcome. I just need to not even control. I just need to bring my authentic presence and my authentic self. And I
Mhm.
I love what you said a couple of times, Frank, of like treat other people the way that I
Mhm.
would like to be treated. And so, how do I want people to respond to me and responding to them with that same graciousness and kindness and consideration? Yeah. Have either of you found that relationships have developed on Substack that surprised you through the process of interacting with people?
yes, yes, definitely. Of course, I met you through engagements. It's incredible because I've met about different people from different parts of the world. Just the other day, I was on a call with someone from US as well. I think it's Chicago also. So we had a call just yesterday, and then the other day was someone from Jordan, Lebanon. Sorry, Lebanon. So it's incredible and it's interesting. You just you just get to meet people and
Mhm.
connect with people. I also have a very good friend of mine, Jess. She runs about 2 to 3 publications, and she's quite an amazing writer as well. So
Mm,
yeah, I've been able to connect with so many people. How
mm,
about you?
Yeah, no, I agree, and I'm thankful for this conversation, right? So we're bridging continents and cultures and time zones and all of
yeah.
those things. I think that's one of
And
the
3
beautiful.
countries. Yeah.
Exactly, 3 countries. But I also like, I have been pleasantly surprised by the
Mm,
people who have, privately said, "Kevin, I just want you to know that your comments have helped carry me."
mm,
Or for one individual, I've been blessed to be able to pre-read her book and to be able to share thoughts about, and it's like, I wouldn't like, of all the people, like, you picked me to be able to do it. And so she has another book coming out after that, and I'm saying, like, "Hey, if you need me, I'm available." And she was like, "Yes." And so I say that to be able to say that, like, but like, I didn't come looking for anything other than an opportunity to be able to share my ideas. But to the
mhm,
point that you have made, Frank, that you want to treat people the way that you want to be treated by engaging authentically, it allows others to be able to
mhm,
engage authentically too. And that may not always be with a live the way we're talking, but it might very well be with a restack or with a comment or an opportunity to be able to share. I mean, I have been surprised. Like I was the subject of somebody's essay. I
So
mean, like
lovely.
this
Yeah.
I couldn't I can't make these things up. Like it's just evidence of the need to be able to go forward. And if I bring back the seed motif just one
Yeah.
more time,
Yeah.
we may not be able to, and this to your point about the client that you have, we may not be able to enjoy the shade of the
Mhm.
tree that we have planted today. So we may never know whether or not that tree took up root and made it. But for the person that goes to that tree and swings and sees how beautiful it is, they'll be thankful that the seed was planted so long ago. And so, what we are doing today may not necessarily result in the level of engagement or the level of life change that we might think that we are providing. But that does not mean that there are not seeds germinating even now as a result of the work that we are doing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the beautiful part of this is I think that's the part that takes the pressure off because it says, "Hey, I don't have to control the outcome. I don't have to make something happen. I just get to choose how I want to show up." And yeah, just being willing to engage in those deep and meaningful ways. Yeah. Have you found that comment sections become more than a comment section when you start to engage in this way? Do they become conversations?
Yeah. Yes. I think that's I'd go back to LinkedIn, of course,
Mhm.
because that's one thing about great comments, great insights, and then you have to say thank you. But here on Substack, yeah, here on Substack, you might just drop a little article and someone has an idea on it and
Mm,
it's it comes close to their work and what they write about. And then
mhm.
you're going like 10 messages in the comment section. And
Yeah,
it's nice. It's very nice. I love that.
yeah,
So I agree. And so again, as I try to do engagement, like I've made a comment, but it's clear that other people are feeling the same way or have added value in a way that I didn't intend. And so, or that I didn't see rather. And so I go to them and say, "Hey, I just want you to know that I appreciated what you said about this thing." And then all of a sudden we're engaged in conversation within this same person's thread. And just yesterday, someone said, like, "I'm loving just seeing you guys interacting on the post that I wrote." And like this level of
Mm,
engagement is
yes.
possible as a result of deep reading. And that's a great feeling for the
Yeah,
author of the post to say, "I see you guys interacting based on what I shared."
yeah.
And those are the sprouts that I was speaking of before.
Yes.
Those are some of the blooms that you have to look for and to be able to see. And with that, I really do think that it gives you the courage to be able to fight on, right? If
Mm,
you've planted a flower bed and your neighbor comes and says, "Hey, I just want you to know that your flowers look beautiful." Oh, you put a little stepping and you feel a little better about yourself. I'm gonna get out there, I'm gonna
yeah,
water some flowers some more. And like I think
mm,
that's the thing is that we have to be able to encourage one another and recognize that again, somebody took some time
yeah,
to be able to write this. Like we just said that we are busy and can't always comment. That also means that they were busy and from their brokenness, from their time, from their cup that was not necessarily overflowing, but was maybe empty, and they're sharing, that the least I can do is to be able to say, "I see you. I recognize that this took some time." And look, it might cause them to straighten up and say, "Oh, okay, somebody likes what I had to say. Let me
yeah,
say a little bit more." And
yeah,
I think that's okay.
yeah. I have to say that is one of the things that brings me incredible joy is when I see connections happening. And I find often in my subscriber chat, I'm trying to at least a couple of times a week just pose an interesting question. And sometimes, I mean, I have time first thing in the morning and last thing in the evening. and a lot can happen in the daytime. So sometimes I'll come back and I'll see conversations between people happening in the chat, and I love it. Honestly, it brings me such joy. So I know exactly what you're saying, Kevin. Like, it is lovely to see that interaction. I've found too, I mean, my very first live was another accidental discovery. Somebody, Christopher Carazza said, "Hey, does anyone want to jump on a live?" And without knowing what it was, I said, "Sure." And, now I just love doing this. But in that process of just starting to resonate deeply with things that I was reading, I found there were connections that built, and some of them have become connections that are continuing outside of just the Substack piece where we're texting each other, sending each other voice notes, getting together in chats outside of Substack where we're sharing things that we haven't shared publicly and just things like that that have been really beautifully engaging. And so for me, it's been one of the surprise gifts of Substack is I came here because my coach told me I should write, and I've discovered a whole life that I didn't know existed that feels deeply congruent with who I am. And yeah, I keep using the metaphor of I feel like I've reconnected with my 7-year-old self because it does feel like I've reconnected with some of those dreams that just the pressures of life kind of put off to the side for quite a while. And I'm aware of our time and that we probably need to take a break from this conversation. I've really enjoyed both of you being here, and I'm so thankful you both said yes.
Thank you. Thank you for
Mm,
thinking enough of us that you would invite
mm,
us to this. Thank you
yeah.
for being the type of convener that would say, you know what, I think that these two people work well together, and let's bring them together and hear what they have to say. Thank you for your vision for what this conversation could be and for making it happen. So thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Well, my question that I thought might be a good one to close with is what would you say to somebody who's been listening to this and who says like, "Yeah, this is great that you guys engage with stuff. I want to engage more meaningfully, but I don't know what to say or I don't know how to do it." What words of encouragement or advice would you offer?
Okay. For me, I'd say it's just one simple thing, right? What's when you're reading a piece, right? It's like, what's one missing piece? One missing piece that resonates with you deeply, and you feel like if you can add this to it, it gives it even deeper insight and deeper
Mm,
meaning. And yeah, that's what I try to do, and that's what I advise someone else to try to do as well.
Yeah, I'm gonna put you in a commercial for my technique, Frank. Just kidding. But I would say to them, can you do Davis? Can you deepen the connection? Can you add value? Can you make the author feel seen? And
mm,
it doesn't have to be 10 paragraphs.
mm,
It doesn't have to be two. But is there something about what was said that deepens the connection? Maybe you saw yourself in the piece. Maybe you felt like they were talking to you that adds value. Is there something
mm,
that, to Frank's point, that it wasn't said or could be said or an extension of an idea? And
mhm,
then do you make the author feel seen? And that can be as easy as thank you for sharing. Thank
mm,
you for telling us that story. Thank you for trusting us with something so personal. Those things go a long way in helping the author feel seen, but also creating the types of conditions where relationships, friendships, partnerships, all of those things, the text messaging group that you talked about, all those things can happen. Like that is the germination process by
yeah.
making the author feel seen.
Yeah. Oh, that's lovely. Thank you both. I think the only thing I would add to it would be just show up as yourself. Like, it doesn't have to be perfect. You don't even have to have the right words. Just let them be words that are meaningful to you. And a grief actually came to mind, which was a lot of times when someone has experienced a loss, what they find is that people don't say anything to them because they don't want to say the wrong thing. And a lot of times, not saying anything is the wrong thing. And so the best thing to do is just show up and be who you are and bring what you can to the table. So Thank you both so much. I have really enjoyed this. And we started off talking about collaborations. I love collaborations. So,
Let's do it.
if
Yep,
ideas come to mind, reach out
Yeah.
because
absolutely.
I'm always interested.
Yeah, I will. I will. I do collaborations on for my newsletters, so
Yeah,
you definitely be hearing from me.
sounds great.
All
Well,
right.
have a wonderful weekend, everyone. And thank you to everyone who joined us and for the beautiful comments and affirmations. I've been reading them as they go. If I missed any questions or something that I didn't see, as always, feel free to message any one of us if you've got some further thoughts or questions, and we'd love to engage with you further. So,
Absolutely. Good,
exciting, everyone. All right.
Yeah,
good weekend.
happy Friday. Yeah. Enjoy
Okay.
your
Absolutely.
weekend.
All right. Bye, all.
Bye.